Have you been experiencing internal financial struggles triggered by economic concerns? Are you feeling capped at your current income level and can't seem to realize your financial potential? Energy healer Jean Border has created an emotional freedom technique, or EFT, tapping protocol to help calm the inner voice that keeps you stressed. Claim your free copy at jeanborder.com/vow and say goodbye to those financial blockages. Welcome to another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. It's not just about dreaming, it's about making those dreams a practical reality. Subscribe to us via your favorite network by visiting our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. Now, get ready. Your journey to success starts here.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Jean Border, with another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, where we talk everything business with the slant on energy work, mindset work, and how psychology impacts not only your personal life, but also your business decisions. So a little bit of the woo to go along with the do, if you want to say it that way. I've heard it said that way, so there you go. I have a special guest with me here today that we're going to have really nice discussion with, Suzanne Giesemann, and we have a little bit in common, and I'll tell you guys about that in a minute. But before we get there, I want to remind you that there is a free resource for you down below in the show notes, jeanborder.com/vow. If you're having some issues with your financial situation, or if you have tension in your body around the economic situation of the country that you're in, or the city that you're in, or your family's financial position, there's some tapping protocols, EFT tapping protocols in the PDF below. And you just do a little bit of tapping on some points on your body, calms down your nervous system, allows you to address these issues from a place of calm rather than a place of fear or tension or reaction. Just very easy protocols. Just what I just went through. I just did 2 little tapping rounds for you. So you can use that as your example if you need, or if you're familiar with it, just go through the tapping protocol, click on the link below to get your PDF. Okay? And now on with the show. Hi, Suzanne. How are you? I'm so happy that you're here.
Hi, Jean. I just love learning about our shared background. We right away have something in common.
Yes, we do. Give us a little bit about your background, and then we'll let our listeners in on our big secret.
Okay. Well, I'm in my second career. My first career, I was a naval officer. I served for 20 years, retired with the rank of commander. In my 9 tours of duty, I served as a commanding officer. I was a special assistant to the Chief of Naval Operations. That's the head of the Navy. And the greatest honor was being aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the right-hand man to the head of the U.S. military. It was really great flying on Air Force One and meeting with kings and queens, sitting in on top secret hearings on Capitol Hill. I was in the last aircraft in U.S. airspace on 9/11. Today, complete switch. I am a spiritual teacher. Been recognized on a list of the top 100 most spiritually influential living people, which is an interesting way to put it.
I'm glad you're still living.
And it is my greatest joy and passion and my mission to share with people a way of living that I call the awakened way, which is a consciously connected, divinely guided life. And I do that by showing people that we are not only human, we are souls, and we are connected to one big web, and we can tap into that for many reasons, for healing, for comfort, and to help our lives flow much more easily.
And for my normal, everyday, all the time listeners, you know my background. My dad was Air Force. I traveled all over the world with my dad. Then he retired, and I went stir crazy and knew I'd have to get a job where I could travel and somebody else would pay for it. And that's how I ended up with the Department of Defense for 36 years in leadership positions. I did a stint with Navy. So we were discussing that before we got on the air. All the travel, all the different locations that we had in common, the history. I was not in the air at 9/11. I was in the Washington, D.C. area. And I was in a building where they pulled us all down to one of the lower floors in case there was fallout from the sky. They wanted to keep us safe. So that was a very interesting few days. I'll say that day was pretty traumatic. But then the few days after that, when you're in a very heavily congested airspace area and there's no sound overhead for 3 days, oh my gosh, so eerie. You'd hear a police helicopter and you'd like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Because normally you wouldn't notice it, right?
I remember that. Yep.
So weird. Anyway, I'm glad that your journey actually mirrors mine in a lot of ways. And so we've come to the same place where we have grown different skills and intuition has come into play. And trusting that voice in your head, right? That sometimes we're told, let it go. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, whatever you say. Well, no, whatever I'm told, right? So tell us a little bit about how you got from that old career to where you are now.
It was through a major wake-up call. 9/11 was the first real opening to my questioning the universe, asking those deeper life questions. Why are some people in the wrong place at the wrong time? Why were some of my colleagues killed 2 weeks before they retired? So I did retire and went off and lived my dream with my husband until my stepdaughter, a sergeant in the Marines, was crossing the flight line at work and was struck by lightning.
Oh my gosh.
And she was 6 months pregnant with our only grandchild. And it was when I attended her amazing military funeral, looked at her body in the coffin, I said, that's not her. It was an epiphany for me to know that there is some force, some spirit, something that gives these bodies life. And I just knew that you could not kill Susan's beautiful spirit. I'd been raised with no religion, no spirituality. I had no awareness of a greater reality, but I said, Susan, I know you have to still exist. Something in me knew that, and I know that's the higher self knew that. And so I decided to start meditating that week in 2006. And that process of sitting quietly every day saying, Susan, reveal yourself to me, revealed connections that we all can open up with a source of infinite intelligence. And it's not just our little voice inside, Jean. It's multiple voices because the universe expresses itself in limitless ways. And when we learn, and we can all do it, to tap into that guidance that is readily available, your life flows in miraculous ways. And that's my goal, to share with people how to expand your consciousness and be part of that flow.
And what does that look like to somebody who has no clue what you're talking about?
Yeah.
How do they begin to understand that?
What it looks like is being willing to question your BS. And that stands for belief system, if you read my book. And the belief system that says, well, I have to do it all myself. I have to make to-do lists. I have to. And then you question, are you really alone? Well, these people are saying there's this thing called a soul or the spirit. What's my belief about that? And then start educating yourself about the possibility, which is the reality, of higher intelligence that is ready to help us. And then experience it for yourself through meditation, expanded states of consciousness, presence, and then engage that voice inside. You may just hear a little thought, oh, I should do this, I should do that. But what if you say, who's saying that? What else do I need to know? And start a conversation. I just shared with you what I call the 3 E's of awakened living: educate, experience, engage. Once you start engaging this voice, you realize it is separate from your normal stuff. Stuff stands for sensations, thoughts, and feelings. It is separate, and it is way wiser because it has the higher perspective beyond your limited restricted vision in a body. And once I started engaging this voice and other voices, realized there are beings, there are higher consciousness forms without bodies who absolutely know where we are, where we're headed, and can guide us. It has changed the way I operate in every way of my life.
You've written 15 books? Is that?
That's right. But not all on this subject, but my last 7 or so were about metaphysics, that beyond the physical.
And how does science come into this?
Well, that's what I call 21st century spirituality. Science and spirituality are starting to all say the same things, but with different vocabulary. We can call it a soul. Somebody in a scientific bent may say it's energy information field. And that's the same thing. There were some scientists in the late 1900s, around 1977, I'm not sure the year, who did experiments with subatomic particles. The moment they modified one, another one that was originally connected with it instantly changed, even though it was hundreds of miles separate. That showed that at the subatomic level, there is no separation between these particles. It took until 2022 for those scientists to be awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. And anybody in the spiritual field says, yeah, we've known that for 2,000 or more years, that everything is connected. So the two are starting to come together, and that's beautiful because we need scientists to know the brain doesn't create consciousness. We are consciousness with a brain that actually limits us from being aware of frequencies that will help us that are right here.
As you're talking, I'm thinking back to a seminar I went to. I'm a lifelong learner. I just am, right? And one of the seminars I went to, a guy was trying to explain energy. So he was on one side of the stage and someone else was on the other side of the stage. And he was feeling their energy field from across the stage, right? Only they were totally separate. But he could feel where things started and how the shape and everything. It was very interesting. The first time you see it, and then you can conceptualize it. And then it starts to make sense. But the first time you see it, like, what the heck? That's just air. Well, no, it's really not, you know?
And that's what starts to change your BS. And then you dive in a little more, educate yourself, start watching videos about things like near-death experiences. And there's so much unconsciousness that we can go down a lot of rabbit holes. But I love that you're the practical dreamer here. This becomes very practical when you apply it to your daily life.
And let's take it a step further. Apply it to your business.
Okay. Well, when I started doing this work, I would give presentations in a lot of different locations, and I would outline everything. Then I'd try to memorize it. Then I'd have just a few notes in front of me. I would time it in front of a mirror. I'd have my to-do list. Today, I know beyond any doubt that I have helpers. I have never seen them, but I am guided so clearly that they'll just give me a brief outline the morning before a presentation. Just talk about this, this, and this. We will talk with you as you talk. And they'll say, okay, it needs to be 20 minutes. I've seen some videos of my presentations. They end at 19 minutes, 50 seconds, and I never time it. I don't have to worry about it. So it takes all of this need to plan and leave Post-it notes and worry about your notes and just set that aside to the point where you can get to a point of total trust that what you need is actually given to you in a way that's beyond anything you could have planned in advance.
It was always interesting to me that people would approach the process the way you used to do it. I'm like, oh my gosh. You're not even present when you're doing it that way. If you're going to memorize it, just hand me your speech. I don't need to listen to you read something.
Right.
You know, the people who have the little scrolling teleprompters and they're reading their whole speech, but they've been trained on how to put emotion in it. I'm like, no, it's not real. It's not you. You're reading. I can read. I don't need you to read to me. I'm old enough. I've got experience in that. You know, it's very frustrating for me.
Yeah.
Even with a lot of presentations from really famous people, they get on the internet and they start reading this stuff. I'm like, I don't need you to read your slides to me. I just don't. I came for nuance, right?
That's right.
That's what I want. I want that in-depth stuff, not your bullet points. I'm like you. I get up. If I need to get on a stage, I'll take like 3 words with me. So I make sure I cover those topics. That's it. If I don't know it, I shouldn't be up there. If it's not going to come to me, like these podcasts, it's a one-take conversation. What is supposed to come out is what will come out. And if it's not said, it wasn't meant for that audience. That's my take. Everybody has different ways of working, but that's my belief.
It's so funny you say that because I've gotten a nickname. They call me One Take Suzanne. But it does require something on my part, Jean, and that's right before I start realizing I'm not doing this alone. I'm going to be inspired. I'm going to get higher consciousness to flow through me. And so it's a shift. And that's why my book, The Awakened Way, has the subtitle, Making the Shift to a Consciously Connected Life or Divinely Guided Life. And that shift to me is literally shifting from I'm only human restricted thinking to I'm connected to all the guidance I need, all the intelligence I need. And I open up to that. And then it just happens.
I appreciate so much the people who allow what's meant to happen. Because I don't know who's in the audience. I don't know who needs what piece of information, but I trust that it's going to be there for them.
Well, that's because higher consciousness knows who's in the audience. And that's another point, Jean. I do a lot of Q&A sessions on my podcast and when I do workshops. And I hear a lot of the questions over and over again, same questions. But I've learned that people will hear what they need in the moment. And when I trust that the universe knows who's in the audience, I won't just parrot the same answer every time. I make that shift and the answer comes out differently. We get new analogies. We get fresh information. If more people would do that, we would all grow more together instead of being in these ruts of always doing things the same way.
When I would come into new duty stations and I would have a new team to work with, it was very interesting that certain people were stuck in, this is the answer. Well, if you explain it that way, this person might not have your background, might not have your knowledge, might not have your experience. They don't have a clue what you're saying. Learn to say it differently based on your audience, right? But some people are so stuck in, this is how it must be. This is the only way. Maybe it's not.
That's right. And as you said that, even as you were imitating how people get stuck, my body clenches. So we can learn to use the body as a barometer when we're in that mode. I caught myself the other day. We're traveling across the country right now, and my husband was driving, and he said, you want me to use headphones while I listen to music? And I said, nope, that's not safe, and I can't, and we're cut off from each other, so no, I'll sit here and work. You listen to your music. And I was clenching, and I suddenly noticed, wow, that's not the relaxed state that shows I'm connected. So I asked my team in spirit, is it really okay to change my thoughts on this? And I said, Ty, next day, go ahead and use your headphones. If you need me, just wave at me. And I realized how much more calm I was at the end of the day because the road noise and his music and me working was overload. We took out his music. Now I just had the road noise and my working. It was still a little stressful, but not completely knocked off balance. So it's this awakened way of living requires you to be aware when there's clenching in you. That's just a sign you're not in alignment with the higher self, no matter what the subject.
And another thing that came up when you were talking was control. We so want to be in control of everything around us. And when people don't think the same way we do, it can create tension in our body, even if it's a totally irrelevant thing, like him listening to music. You don't care if he listens to music, but something in you tensed up, right?
Right.
The same thing happens when we feel like we need a little bit more control of a situation for whatever reason. And that's just a construct. We have no control anywhere. But
right.
We feel that tension in our body, and that means there's a trigger there somewhere that we need to explore and allow to relax so we can enjoy our world. That's my take.
It resonates. Yeah.
I just had a client yesterday that I had to go through this scenario with because even the political signs in the yard was creating tension for this person. And I'm like, their beliefs honestly have nothing to do with you, but you're allowing them, you're allowing your power to be taken away by pieces of paper in a yard. They have no power over you other than what you give it. So explore why you're allowing pieces of paper to take away your joy.
Very good. Yeah, awareness is such a part of this path of being awakened. If we're stuck in our thoughts and our need to control and always thinking, I have to, I should, I must, then we're not present. And presence is a part of so many practices, and it's very helpful for being calm. But in my work, and what I try to help people see, is that the more present we are, we're creating openness, spaciousness in our awareness. And now the guidance that's always here can be heard. We notice it. So we make this a regular daily practice to be listening, noticing. Am I overthinking or am I aware? And then, wow, you just notice how much you're being guided. Act on it as long as it's helpful. And notice how things start to flow.
And that can be so scary if you've never done that kind of thing. If you've always trusted everyone else to lead you and direct your path, becoming aware that you want something maybe a bit different than what you had thought before, and you don't know what that looks like, and you don't have anyone close to you who's walking that path, that can be scary.
Well, you just gave me the image of a little kid standing at the edge of the pool, and it's scary because you've never done this before. But something tells you this is going to be fun. This is going to be good. This is going to be beneficial. And so you jump in, and it's fun and it's wonderful. And so this is a process, and it takes practice of heeding the voice, trying it, and seeing, wow, that was positive. That worked out okay. And then that gives you the trust to take the next leap and the next, until it becomes just the way of being.
What creates the desire to write a new book?
Oh, it is our source. It's our higher self that knows that we all came here to create in some way, to use whatever is our innate ability and skill and our passion and just bring it forth, birth it. It's why Spirit created a universe in the first place, because there's so much potential, so much possibility in every one of us that just has to come out. And you can feel it building up, and you may not even know how it's going to end, how it's going to come out, but you just dive right in. And because you followed that nudge, that innate natural urge, beauty follows.
Did you write any of them when you were still active duty, or did they all come later?
My very first book, which is out of print now, but it's on Kindle, was called Conquer Your Cravings, because I had no spiritual tools most of my life. And I turned to food as my drug of choice when I stuffed down all of my feelings. And I finally, from age 12, I knew there was a book in me, but I didn't know what it was going to be. But when I found these insights about what was leading to the cravings and how to overcome them, I said, this is what all that was about, so that I could help. If I can help one other person overcome their cravings, I'm going to write a book. And this was in 1997, when there's no self-publishing. And I got a contract with a really good publishing house. And I was a lieutenant commander in the Navy at the time. It was so exciting. When I look at that book now, I've changed so much since then. The teaching is still valid, but there's so much more. And that's why we're all works in process, right? Yeah. In fact, I get daily messages from Spirit, and I put them on. I have a Awakened Way app that's free. I put them on my website every day. And earlier this week, the daily message in meditation said, you are all pleasures in progress. You may say work in progress, but it's an artwork, and you are the masterpiece.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
I love that. We're pleasure in progress for our higher selves.
That's nice. So is that the name of your next book?
I don't know what the next book is. I actually have one coming out with Hay House next year. So I'm taking a little break from writing for a while. We'll see. We're actually working on a documentary based on one of my books, Wolf's Message, which leaves absolute proof that we are all souls. And, you know, that Navy background, I require evidence. I wouldn't say proof if we didn't have it. And I never would have imagined the life that I'm leading now. But I thank my stepdaughter for awakening me to how connected we all are. When we can tap into that, that's when the miracles start happening. And to bring that into the business world, to help people not be just, striving for this and that all the time, but realizing even our work can be a service to others and to ourselves. It's a beautiful thing.
So how has this new way of being changed the way you look at the leadership role? Or has it?
Well, I have to tell you, I'm still a bit stunned. This last weekend, I flew to Boulder, Colorado, where this global organization called Humanities Team awarded me their Spiritual Leadership Award for 2024. They've only given it 13 times over the last 20 years. Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, other recipients. I was blown away. But they've seen how my work is helping the world, and it really caused me to look at leadership. And it's funny, Jean, because I taught leadership and management for an entire tour in the Navy. And I went back and I looked at the competencies that we used to teach Navy officers and senior petty officers. And then I looked at them from the soul's perspective. And they're really very similar, but there's a whole different nuance when you bring in the fact of oneness, wholeness, connection. It's not just my group, my team. It's how does everything we do serve the greater good? And leadership is all about inspiring and motivating others. And our soul naturally wants to do that. So when we can realize, yes, I'm here to lead this group or this organization, but I'm also part of a whole. How can our organization help others instead of competing? That's going to change the whole dynamic of your work. New opportunities will come to you that you might not have even thought of because you're radiating a wholly different vibe. It's connection, it's oneness, it's wholeness. You can become an inspirer, a leader beyond what you think you're doing.
I've had good leaders and I've had bad leaders. And unfortunately, the ones that can stick with you the most are the ones who don't have the best interest of their, I'll say, team in mind. And that's sad, but I guess we're sometimes programmed to remember the bad instead of the good. And that colors our view of the organization.
I love that you use that word program because it's as part of my work, I've really dived into neuroscience, and it's certainly at a surface level because I'm not a scientist. But the science is clear. Our left brain causes us to compete, causes us to judge, to try to control. Meditation dampens that tendency and activates the right brain hemisphere activities of flow and the awareness of connection. And anybody in business would understand how important flow is. And so if we can make it part of our mission to bring more of that flow into our lives and honor the right brain, we'll start to recognize when we fall into the trap of judging, competing, and say, it's the program. And say, just let's set that aside for now and let's tap into something more. That's balance. Balance the left brain and the right brain. Balance the head and the heart, and watch how that thing changes things for you.
And I mentioned that in various circumstances, but it comes up a lot talking about money. Yes, I'll spend money, but I might have blocks about receiving money. But everything has to be a flow. And if you're only giving, and you're blocking the receiving, there's something going on with the process, right? Because everything is a process.
It is. And money is just such a great spiritual tool because it presents us so many opportunities for growth, for seeing the connection. There, so many people have so much fear around money. I see my old programming in myself when my husband says, I think we should do this with the money. And instantly I go like that. And then I say, wait, we have it. Yes, let's do that with the money. And this is the beauty of becoming more aware. You notice again that clenching, but we have to be willing to look at what's the basis, what's the root cause of that fear or that anger or that judgment.
So funny. I had one of my guests a few months ago was a finance guy, right? And we were talking about, retirement funds and all this stuff. And he said, so what would you do with your retirement fund? And I said, well, it's sitting there, and theoretically I'm retired, but and the tension was there, right? My voice was there. Right? It's like, what if I touch it? Well, if I don't touch it, it's going to waste, right? I'm going to give it to people after I'm dead? Well, what's the point? I saved all that money throughout my career and invested that money so I would have it when I retire. Now, using it when I retire, well, it's hilarious. The beliefs and the fears that we create around different things. I'm using money because it's a very obvious one that most people have some kind of an imbalance in their relationship with money, good or bad, whatever. But it's so funny when you feel a tension in your body, there's an issue there. Yeah. Typically something that happened when you were young or that you picked up over time and you created a belief system about it. Does it serve you anymore? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But if you don't become aware of it, it will never change. You have to make a choice, right?
When I used to do presentations at small new thought churches around the country, the leadership of the churches would say, well, we ask people for a love offering for your 3-hour workshop, a love offering. That makes it spiritual, right? That makes us feel good. So they'd put a basket there, and for a 3-hour presentation that I've spent a lot of energy creating slides and traveling to get there, people would get $2.50 or maybe a $5 bill. And I finally realized that's people's fear. They'll leave there and go spend $5 for coffee, And so I finally said to the heads of the churches, no, this is the set price and it's very reasonable and it honors the energy and it will show people that they've made a commitment to this. And nobody ever balked. And but it really showed me the fear people have around money. It's very interesting. So, but again, there are so many things in our lives that give us an opportunity to say, ooh, I'm restricting my consciousness, instead of realizing we already are part of something that will provide us exactly what we need.
And exactly what we need. That's another part of the money deal. Charging what you're worth, what you just brought up, right? I work with a lot of what I call younger healers, people who are coming into that service, right? And some of them have a hard time actually charging because, but I can do it. I shouldn't be charging people. Well, you pay your mechanic when your car goes out. Do you pay your doctor when you go to the doctor? Do you pay the person who cuts your hair, right? They can do all that stuff just like you can do this. The belief about money, about receiving money, about being worthy of money, the fact that you made the shift from accepting whatever people were willing to give you to saying, no, this is what I'm worth.
Yeah.
Let them decide up front if they want to invest that in their well-being.
There you go.
In their future, right? Give them a choice. This is my boundary. They get the choice.
So that I found that from another a spiritual teacher who left his business. His name is George Kao, Kao, to start a spiritual practice of coaching people. There are two factors that are really helpful when determining what to charge for spiritual services or any services. And one is it enough to pay your bills? And put the compassion element in it. Is it going to break the bank for the people that really want your services? There's the balance right there. Enoughness. Because sometimes people charge things, and do they really need that? Well, I don't know. Is this their only income? Maybe it is. So we each set our own boundaries, right?
And sometimes there's the idea, well, I need enough to pay my bills, but anything more than that is greedy. So that's another layer to work through. Every time you go up the ladder, there's another layer to work through, right?
But here's the key with the awakened way of living. When you realize you're part of a team and there is a higher consciousness, make it a habit to pause and ask. So many people wonder, what should I charge? Or what should I do? Or I'm really not sure what to do about this. Instead of pausing, taking a nice, slow, relaxing breath to get centered, acknowledging and believing you're part of something bigger, and then asking higher consciousness, what is the perfect price? Or should I do this now? My guides just said, don't use the word should. Is it an optimal choice to make now? Is this a good time to start this new career? And then be relaxed and open with no preconceived ideas and just listen, receive whatever comes to you. You may not get an answer right away, but when you ask that clearly, that specifically, it will become clear in a way that you notice.
And always check for the tension in your body, and that tells you there's more work to do. There's another issue that you haven't recognized or that you haven't admitted to yet, perhaps.
And then become curious and say, okay, what is that? What's that all about? Show me. That's how I first overcame the emotional overeating. I had never asked, why do I head for the refrigerator first thing? What's going on here? And when I finally sat with that simple process of actually asking higher consciousness, wow, did I need to go get pen and paper? All these insights started flowing about the root causes, and it went, of course, back to childhood. And that's when the real healing started. So don't wander around wondering what to do about anything. Trust, be open to the truth that there is higher consciousness here to help you, and ask directly. You have a genie in the bottle here. You may not realize it. We all do. I have a practice. I have a YouTube video about this called the Sip of the Divine, SIP. That stands for Sit in Peace. Very simple practice for how to still your mind. Notice what stands out when you ask one simple question. That question can change every time, but a good one to start with is, what do I need to know right now? Fascinating.
And that is sometimes hard to focus on because you want to look down the road. You want to find out all the things that might go wrong or that you might have to deal with. What it's not relevant right at this moment.
Well, when you trust that there's somebody with a bird's eye view that may see things coming down the road that you don't see, or things behind you in the rearview mirror that are causing you problems and holding you back that you don't see, and you ask, what do I need to know right now? It drops in. You may not be perceptive enough at first, but when you sit 3 minutes a day, that if you can make a commitment, we call it the sip of the divine because people will spend 5 minutes a day making their morning sip of whatever it is, and then they make excuses. Oh, I don't have time to meditate. But anybody can spare 3 minutes. I've had people come to me. I have a kindergartner teacher teaching her kindergarten class to do the sip of the divine. They're like, Mrs. Smith, can we do the sip? And then they want their parents to do it because it just changes the way you operate in this world. You become aware you are being guided. There is a place of peace right here within us. That's the added benefit there. It's like being able to step out of the movie theater when the drama gets a little bit too much. Just close your eyes, go to this place that you now get practice in accessing that's available to all of us. So peaceful. because the busy world is out there and you've tuned into the part of you and me and all that is that never changes. That's the source of all creation. That's the sea of pure potential. And you can tap into that with very simple practices.
I don't know why this is coming up, but it is, so I'm going to say it. Some of the guests that I've had have very lengthy meditation requirements each day, like hours, multiple times a day.
Mm.
And I find that interesting. And they believe it's the right path. And for them, it must be.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't resonate with that.
Well, this 3-minute practice that I just shared with you, that is all you might ever need. I talked to a physician, Melvin Morse, who ended up in prison, convicted with other felons, but he was a meditation practitioner. He has now had his medical license reinstated. His heart is a beautiful heart. But he taught his fellow prisoners to meditate 1 minute at a time. He had one guy jump off his chair and say, "There is a God." And it's not about God. It's about coming to find this source of information within us. Call it what you want. But this man, his fellow prisoner, had never sat and realized you can step back from your story. And it's our stories that keep us bound and victim and empty. But when you experience this fullness that's right here, that's when you're tapping into this limitless source of guidance and wisdom. 1 minute a day. And they were in a noisy, bright environment, a prison, a maximum security prison. And all you need to do is focus on what stands out from the noise. You can do a meditation for 1 minute or 3 minutes in a room that's completely silent, and you'll notice how noisy the normal human mind is. But with 3 minutes a day, 1 minute a day, 50 minutes a day, it's not quantity, it's the quality of your focus. And the sip of the divine will train you to focus on what stands out. And then throughout your day, when you're not sitting in peace, you notice what stands out. And you say, wait, I feel guided to do this. Wait, I just got a download. I'm going to go do that. And that's how it works. It becomes a way of being. That's this awakened way that I'm talking about.
So is that where you would suggest people start?
Yes, I would. Well, I'd start with the Awakened Way book, because it has this foundation that most people aren't aware is here, your soul. It shows you you're not only human, you're part of one big web, and that there's this creative force that connects us all. The foundational elements with many evidence-based anecdotes in there. And then the second half is practical tools and practices that anybody can implement no matter how busy. It doesn't matter if your background is spiritual, scientific, religious. This is in a language that we all can relate to. So start there. And then my YouTube channel has over 400 educational videos. The Sip of the Divine is an excellent place to start. No more meditation excuses.
So where can people find you?
SuzanneGiesemann.com, Awakened Way app, my YouTube channel, Facebook, kind of out there right now, which is good. That's
cool. And if you didn't catch all that, you can click on the links below in the show notes, and I'll take you right to her. So we're coming up on the end of our time together. Is there something else that we haven't covered that you'd like to leave with our listeners?
This Awakened Way, it helps people on the spiritual path. It helps people who are grieving, and it helps people who sometimes just want off the planet. Most people feel that they're a victim of something. And I can tell you, we're all walking wounded, every one of us. But what I have discovered is that at the level of the soul, you are already perfectly whole and complete. There is nothing wrong with your soul. Come to know that, and come to know what my guides say every day at the end of the daily Awaken Way messages. You are so very loved. Start there.
Wow. That's nice. And I want to touch on something that you said, and I hate to mess up the end of the show, but you said there are some people who just want off the planet. And that is so true. And so if that happens to be where your thoughts are at the moment, maybe you might listen to this episode again and make use of some of the resources that were mentioned here. But on a happier note, I want to thank you so much for being here. I've enjoyed our time together. I really like it.
May I add something to what you just said?
Yeah.
And I believe it's a story I told in the book. I was on a mountain bike trail one day. I was exhausted. I'd done a presentation. I said to my husband, let's just go for a ride. And it was supposed to be flowy and enjoyable. And I started going over all these rocks and these roots, and I got really irritable. And I said, this is supposed to be pleasant. And I heard this booming voice say, it's a mountain bike ride, for God's sake. And I busted out laughing. And all of a sudden I got it. You know, we think life is supposed to be always pleasant, and it's not. We came here for all of it. The rocks, the roots, the flowy parts. And I go through times when I went off the planet. I'm not always joyous. Life is not always pleasant. And yet you come to know the soul came here for the fullness. When we push aside the lousy parts, the parts that get us upset, that's when we feel empty. We're not appreciating, okay, this is the rocky part. There will be smooth parts. I now know I have support to get through this. That's what makes all the difference. So I'm just really glad you brought that up. That's what this is all about, coming to appreciate. It doesn't have to be perfect. Happiness may be in our declaration, or whatever it is, a Declaration of Independence. You know, we're guaranteed happiness. Yeah, well, but so sadness is part of it too. It's part of our wholeness. We are already whole at the level of the soul. Find that part in you, and your life will flow.
Cool. I like this ending much better.
There we go.
But somebody needed it. So,
Right.
That's how my show goes. Whatever needs to come out is what comes out. That's my belief anyway. So, and it's my show, so I can say that. But I want to thank Suzanne for being here. I really enjoyed our time together, and our, military connection, and our travel connection, and leadership connection, all that kind of cool stuff, and the woo-woo part too.
I love it all. All of it. Yep. Thank you.
So thank you for being here. And for the listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in again. Every Tuesday, we drop a new episode where we talk everything energy, mindset, psychology to help you better your business, right? On this focused, practical dreamer's journey. And this is your host, Jean Border. Until next time.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast. Energy work to better your business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey.